I recall seeing the boys wearing this photo from 1983 in Las Vegas when they traveled to Detroit to perform for Barry Gordy. Caesar's Palace is covered in stardust. The Motown queen Diana Ross is set to take the stage as velvet gowns line the marble hallways. However, mayhem breaks out immediately before the show begins. A crew member with a single named backstage pass and a pallid face rushes in. That name makes Diana halt in her tracks. She doesn't yell, she does not explain. She gives the producer a direct look and declares, "Of it, if he's here, I'm not." That evening, an unspoken resentment nearly destroyed a $1 million presentation. After decades of diamond-draped quiet, Diana Ross is finally exposing the 7 singers who violated her rules, betrayed her trust, and ridiculed her legacy. Some used to be friends, some were coworkers, and some were adversaries. The initial one, to put it simply, he was the pop king. Diana, on the other hand, saw him as Michael Jackson, the apprentice who deposed the queen. Motown was more than just a record label in the 1970s, it was the kingdom of Diana Ross's business. Inside its glistening walls, nobody was more brilliant than her, aside from Michael Jackson, the young prodigy she mentored. When Michael was just a few years old, he was more than simply the Todd Jackson and Five's lead singer. He was chosen to be her spouse. She introduced him at award events, connected him with influential individuals, and even let him stay at her house. She was like a son to him, according to many. In return, Michael frequently referred to her as his second mother. But everything changes when you succeed. By the mid-1980s, Michael was a global celebrity, something Motown had never witnessed before. Diana was no longer the room's biggest star. Those in the business noticed Michael's beginning to distance himself. He stopped talking about her in interviews, attending her events, and returning her calls. Rumor had it that he didn't enjoy being referred to as Diana Ross's find. He wanted the crown, not the queen who gave it to him. Then 1989 arrived. Diana thought it would be a beautiful way to honor him, so she was requested to present him with an award for his lifetime of service. She stepped out on stage wearing silk and sequins, spoke brilliantly, and presented Michael with his prize. He gave them to Barry Gordy, Quincy Jones, his pals, and even his chimpanzee Bubbles, but not Diana, after grinning and saying thank you. She never spoke about him in public because she was upset, but she also never assisted another male celebrity. Backstage, she was seen standing motionless with tears in her eyes and whispering simply 3 words, "Never again, Michael." It wasn't just Michael who lost interest in Motown. The next man. Diana was thrown out after the wealthy businessman Barry Gordy built a career around her. He was the founder of the label. Diana Ross and Barry Gordy did more than collaborate. They were the foundation of Motown. In public, they were creative force houses who established an unconventional music business, but behind closed doors, they were lovers. Diana was Gord's greatest achievement for a while, inspiring him and driving him insane. He transformed a young girl from the Detroit projects into a global celebrity and was totally focused on her career. But the assistance came at a price. According to the many who knew Diana well, Barry's influence was too great. He modified her picture and selected her pieces to suit his refined vision. Diana did well in Lady Sings the Blues, although she later said that she felt pressured into it by him. When she tried to defend herself, Barry told her who had done it. Their friendship became a conflict between power and love. By the late 1970s, Diana had outgrown the walls Barry had built for her. Barry believed that her desire for autonomy, creative control, and ownership constituted a betrayal of him. When she signed a $20 million contract with RCA in 1981, the largest deal ever offered to a female singer at the time, Barry grinned in public. However, things were going horribly wrong behind the scenes. He scolded her in private, accused her of being self-centered, and informed his friends that she had forgotten her name. "He wanted me to be his forever," Diana said to a friend after being devastated by his response. "When I answered no, I became an enemy." It was her final visit to Motown. Never give the entire operation to another management. Diana then created and followed her own plans. Barry Gordy was smart and a guardian, in her opinion. After fostering her development, he attempted to impede her progress. She also lost faith in producers after he left. However, the next individual to deceive them wasn't a supervisor. Mary Wilson, Diana's sister and the sister of the irate Supremes, wrote the note. As kids with lofty aspirations, Diana Ross, Mary Wilson, and Florence Ballard all began their lives in Detroit's Brewster housing projects. Together, they created Motown's crown jewel, the Supremes. But behind the scenes, tensions increased as their notoriety increased. Diana was clearly the star, as Gordy had stated. Because of her name, voice, and appearance, the world would buy her. The girls' once close relationship began to deteriorate as Diana was thrust to the forefront. Mary Wilson was the first to feel it. the shared spotlight gradually faded. The group evolved over time, becoming Diana Ross and the Supremes instead of the Supremes. According to Mary's friends, she perceived it as an assault on her authority. The resentment boiled out when Diana left to go alone in 1970. In discussions that continued for decades, Mary accused Diana of being self-centered, allowing her celebrity to transform her, and even plotting Florence's removal. Diana, however, made the correct decision. The much-anticipated Supremes reunion tour was announced. Restoring the magic and healing ancient wounds were the objectives. The fans were pleased, but behind the scenes there is confusion. Mary demanded equal compensation, same billing, and a voice in decision-making. Diana's sponsors supported her when she refused. Though not identical, both bids were good. While Mary had been publicly disparaging her for decades, she felt as though she had been the brand's spokesperson for 30 years. The negotiations broke down. The gathering was over before it had begun. Diana barely raised her voice once. In a private moment, she told Oprah, "I wanted to heal the past." She desired to experience it once more. Mary's book later reopened the argument by accusing Diana of having a crown complex and being a control freak. However, some close to Diana claimed that the entire situation devastated her. Being deceived by an enemy is one thing, but by a sister? She had hoped for a joyful ending to their narrative. That scar is permanent. Aretha Franklin, the queen who refused to cede her throne, was the next performer to mock Diana's voice in front of an entire orchestra. It was a well-known conflict. It was obvious that Aretha Franklin was the queen of souls. She was powerful, independent, and honest. Motown's queen, Diana Ross, was a well-known individual in her own right. However, in the world of music, there could only be one king or queen at a time, and since both women had altered the tone of an era, a rivalry between them was inevitable. For years, they used sly quips in interviews and phony smiles at award events to keep the tension between them low. But in 1985, things deteriorated. Diana walked on stage during a group song to meet Aretha and extend her hand in front of the cameras during a TV tribute to Stevie Wonder. Aretha didn't even look at her. She looked away mid-note and continued singing, but Diana was nowhere to be seen. The spectators didn't notice, but everyone backstage did. Aretha did an interview a couple weeks later. She made a well-known statement when questioned about other female artists. Some people sing, some people pose. She did not identify the other artists. She didn't have to. Diana refrained from publicly retaliating. She didn't. However, the remark was really hurtful in private, and it wasn't the last. According to rumors, Diana was rehearsing for another award presentation where they would both be performing when Aretha leaned over to a close musician and remarked, "That's not singing. It's a sequin-adorned stage talk." Diana heard it. Though she remained silent and smiled, she later told a close friend, "Boat, she could outsing me, but she never outclassed me." They never again appeared together in that group. When it came to respect, Diana didn't give a damn about the range of her voice. Having grace was the key. She silently vowed after Aretha that she would never again take the stage with cruel women who feigned confidence. However, diva star fights were rather common in the spotlight. What followed wasn't. The thin white duke, David Bowie, made Diana feel inferior, which is why Diana detested him. He was once someone she admired, but now he made her feel horrible. Despite being well known in the middle of the 1970s, Diana Ross and David Bowie attended the same private parties. Despite coming from different worlds, their brilliance, curiosity, and respect for one another bound them together. People had a couple flirtatious encounters at London industry events and even discussed a duo late at night in the studio. They were impressed with the other's talent. Diana enjoyed Bowie's roughness. Diana's polish pleased Bowie, but that love would not endure. When Diana's bold and funky new song Upside Down was released in 1980, it immediately shot to the top of the charts, one produced by Bernard Edwards of Chic and Nile Rodgers. It immediately gained traction and turned into an unstoppable cultural phenomenon. And then there came the party, a little gathering in London. Celebrities, directors, and models were all mingling in a champagne and ego cloud. Everyone in the room reportedly chuckled as Bowie, who was renowned for his sardonic tongue and sharp wit, added upside down, grinning, glossy nonsense for bored housewives. Word spread fast even if Diana wasn't present. She heard what was stated the following morning. For some, it was simply excellent British humor. However, Diana interpreted it as a rejection from a person she formerly considered a friend and looked up to. She did not attend any press engagements in the UK that weekend, informed her colleagues that she had been hurt by someone she had considered intelligent. Although she never discussed it publicly, those who knew her well saw a shift. She and Bowie never collaborated again. They never shared a stage. Upside Down was more than just a smash. It became the second song on live performances after American Pie. They were therefore defiant. Even when she was ridiculed, Diana knew how to regain her fame. However, several cuts did not heal. Art was not the subject of the following deception. Quincy Jones, the partner who closed the door, was being cruel to her when she was at her worst. In the early 1980s, Diana Ross had just inked a landmark $20 million contract with RCA. Taking charge of her company and making it her own was the bravest thing she had ever done. She was more than just the queen of R&B. Now that she was free, she could write the next chapter of her story. He was the first person she wanted to collaborate with. The man of the hour was Quinton. He quickly became the world's most sought-after producer. He had just aided in the launch of Michael Jackson's song Off the Wall. Diana admired his intelligence and versatility, but most of all, his ability to elevate great artists to a position of fame. When her team tried to contact her, nothing happened. According to many who know Quincy, he dismissed the idea right away. He allegedly told Diana's pals that she was too difficult to mold and was past her prime. The phrase "too hard" struck Diana like a rail. Because she didn't merely grin and sing, wanted to control the music, and had excessive demands, she had been referred to as a diva for years. She believed she was too old for it, so she buried it. But suddenly it was back, revived by a man she greatly respected. She remained silent, not in interviews, not then, and not even when they inquired. However, she noted in her 1993 autobiography, "Sometimes the men you admire the most admire someone else." It was obvious enough for those who understood it, but it was imprecise enough to get by. Quincy Jones and Diana Ross have never collaborated in a studio or recorded a song together. The enchantment she envisioned has never been created by them. That silence told it everything for Diana. However, what about her list's last name? Since it had nothing to do with fame or power, that one hurts the most. Lionel Richie, the singer who vanished during the performance, spoke about love. Endless Love was not merely a popular pair, it was a significant historical event. It became one of the most well-known love songs of the 1980s. When Diana Ross and Lionel Richie collaborated on it, they had a natural chemistry that is impossible to replicate in a recording studio. Supporters interpreted it as a divine sign. To the business community, it sounded like gold. Behind the scenes, RCA and Motown executives recognized an opportunity. Diana and Lionel could co-headline a world tour, performing together every night and riding the endless love wave. However, just as the contracts were being signed, Lionel withdrew. They were creatively distinct, he publicly declared. The truth was more planned out in private. Lionel was just given his own deal, according to people who know him. The record label wanted him to be independent, sleek, and unattracted to other people. She shared the limelight, the accolades, and perhaps some applause when she went on tour with Diana, who was still quite powerful. He left the tour. Diana was taken by surprise. She had spent months organizing the stage, the dances, and even the set lists. It was more than work. She considered the possibility. It was not a public altercation. She confided in a friend. "We made magic," and he turned it into a memory. There were no interviews or press reports. Silence was all that was heard, the type that conveys the idea more effectively than any quotation. They never again engaged in endless love, not at a tribute or an award ceremony. Why? Up until now, she remained silent. Dee Ross is not merely a vocalist. She spent a long time to establish a reputation and an empire in a field that constantly attempted to undermine her. For decades, she remained silent. Throughout, I laughed. Retired participated in the game. But now that she's 81, she doesn't need to be kind. These tales are about more than simply rage. They are survival stories. That's because behind every stunning photo, gown, and record was a lady attempting to safeguard her crown. At last, she is speaking the truth. Which one most surprised you? Do you believe Diana was correct to keep these names a secret for so long? Since the Supreme Queen just talked, let us know in the comments.